Hey everybody, happy Friday. It's Shelly Kramer here, and this is the first edition, the first series of the Internet of Things, and we are so happy to have you with us today. And we're going to talk about something that I love more than anything, and that is B2B lead generation. And I have a dear friend and the smartest guy I know when it comes to this kind of thing, Shawn Elledge, in the studio with me today. And I can't wait to hear what he has to say. Shawn is the CEO of the Integrated Marketing Summit. He's also the founder of DemandCon. Both of those are conferences that specialize in helping marketers deliver integrated marketing solutions, and then also really focusing on the B2B space, DemandCon. So welcome, Shawn. It's great to have you, and we can't wait to get started.
Well, thanks for having me, Shelly. And if you could see it, I'm blushing right now. Thanks for all the accolades.
So we're going to dive right in, and what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about what's working in B2B lead gen, qualification, and nurturing. And everybody wants to know. I've written about this a lot. It used to be that everybody cared about social, and then everybody started focusing on content. And now all we hear from the C-suite, all we hear is bring me the leads. And leads are important, but the right kind of leads, of course, really is what we're looking for. So what we want to tee it off here and talk about is, lead gen is a big animal to get your arms around. Where do you get started?
That's a great question. I always like to work backwards. One of the things you and me have always talked about is we're kind of data geeks at the end of the day. And so if I have a goal and I'm reaching towards, I got a revenue goal, then what's it going to take for me to reach that goal? And so I tend to work backwards. So on screen you'll probably see this sales lead calculator. This is Mac McIntosh's calculator from Acquire B2B. I've seen a lot of calculators out there. In fact, Eloqua had a really cool calculator. Me and Mac are actually working on a new calculator that takes in the new Serious Decisions waterfall. But regardless of what calculator you use, and we'll be glad to share some calculators with you if you reach out to us. The thing that we're looking for is, okay, what's my revenue goal? $5 million. Okay, great. Then what percentage of that revenue goal is marketing responsible for? So in many cases, about 40%. But although I will say that I think I saw something in Marketing Pros the other day. It said that the revenue goal for marketing now is up to 60%. So,
wow,
so you plug. It is an awful lot, especially when you consider we only get 4.8% of the actual budget,
right?
While sales gets 11%.
So we don't want to fund it. We just want you to make it happen.
Exactly. You don't get any money, but please go out and find us $5 million worth of revenue. And oh yeah, by the way, you get 60% of that goal. So then the next thing is pretty simple. It's like, okay, what's our average deal size? So we plug in, okay, 30,000, let's say in this example. And then what's the percentage of sales opportunities that the company will actually win? So if I bring you 10 qualified leads, how many of them are you really going to close? Now, if you ask the VP of sales, he's going to say, oh, you bring me 10 qualified leads, I'll close every one of them. But the reality of it is he's probably closer to 30% of closing those deals. And then we want to find out, okay, what kind of response rate do you expect to get out of your campaigns? So your push and pull campaigns. And so I generally start off with a 0.5%. That's a pretty realistic number. And ultimately where I'm going with this is how much money do I have to spend to reach this big revenue target? So then I look at, okay, how many salespeople do we have? And which is, by the way, it's kind of an interesting, being a guy who hosts events and talks about marketing every day, it's funny how many marketers I talk to. I'll say, hey, how many field reps do you have? Well, we got 6 of them. Really? Do you know what their individual goals are or their quotas are for the year? I'll get back to you on that. And it's kind of funny. It's like, if you don't know what that quota is, how do you know how many leads you need to generate for that guy to help him make his quota? So think about some of those things. And then I start looking at things like, okay, so what's that really mean to me? I've got a $5 million number. I've got to get 40% of that revenue goal. How many qualified leads do I need to generate to hit that goal based on these figures I put in? So in this example, it looks like I need to close 67 new customers at $30,000 a piece to get 40% of that $5 million goal. So it's just really a simple math equation. And then, so as I go down this thing, I look at, okay, how many inquiries does it take for me, based on the numbers I just plugged in, to get 67 new customers? Well, I need 222 qualified leads. Super. How many inquiries do I need to get those qualified leads? That's 2,222. So then you go, okay, well, if I have an inquiry to lead response rate of 0.5%, that means I have to have 440,000 touches. Now, a lot of people will freak out there. They'll go, 440,000 people? There's not that many in my entire universe.
Never mind
you got to look
database.
you really. So how do we hit that? What we're really saying is, the average deal size probably has maybe 17 people that are involved in that decision-making process. And out of those 17, you're probably talking to them, once a week, once every 10 days, once every 2 weeks. All of those constitute a touch. So really where I'm trying to go with the strategy and what I'm trying to do is figure out, okay, what do I have to work with? How big's my universe? What's my deal size? Give me some kind of idea of how I'm going to reach these goals. But then what we figured out of the 440,000 contacts that we needed or inquiries or touches we need, then I break it down into quarter, and then I break it down into monthly, and then I could start to figure out, okay, this will give me a number of how much money and budget I have to make those touches. So in this case, we have 5% of the $5 million number should go to marketing. And so based on that, I have 56 cents for each touch. That's my budget. So if you only have 56 cents, you're kind of limited. Take out. There's a trade show next month. Well, now you have even less money to work with.
But you know what, Shawn? I think that where that's important, breaking it down into that calculator, that's the way we marketers need to think to get the attention of our senior executives, because you have to understand the realities of what you're asking us to do and the budget that's allocated to it. And so when their thinking is just bring me the leads, and you can come back and say, okay, I've got 52 cents to be able to deliver you each of these leads. What do you want us not to do? I love how that. Do you? And I think that from a strategic standpoint, when you can attack it like that, it puts you in a position of exponentially more power in terms of wrangling those budget dollars that you need.
I couldn't agree with you more. I love it when they say, or they go to threaten they're going to take away some of my budget. I'm like, okay, great. Here's the results of that. We're going to lose about $1 million in revenue. So are you okay with that? And then all of a sudden it gets into that CFO kind of conversation.
Right. But then it's also their decision to go down that path and not marketing's decision to go down that path. But the only way you can get there is to use things like this calculator and lay it out. You can't just shoot from the hip on this. I think that's really, to me, one of the most important messages.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, the CMO has really, his role has really changed a lot. He's becoming the most, he's buying more technology than even the CIO. He's influencing the bottom line of the company probably more than anybody. And so if you can't start off having that conversation, you're gonna have a long battle on your hands.
Right.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. But so yeah, and then a lot of people will say, well, hey, well, great. Now we know how many touches we need. We know what our goals are. How do we get started? And then usually that kind of leads into that whole strategy conversation.
Well, absolutely. So let's talk about that.
Well, so I try, it's tough to explain an entire marketing strategy. In fact, the reality of it is they probably don't care. They just want you to hit that revenue goal. But so what I found, I built this little chart that I find really, it makes it easy for them to visually see what it is that we're up against and how we're going to try to go after getting that goal. And so I look at the universe not as a round globe, but I kind of look at it as a triangle. And at the top of the triangle is our internal staff and communications. What's our elevator pitch? What's our company stand for? What's our internal brand mean? And kind of a neat little story. I remember working for a company. At the time, we had like 200 employees. We had this big quarterly sales meeting, and the VP of sales got up and asked each salesperson to get up and say, what do we do? Tell us about our company. And it was so funny because after
Everybody's going, oh
15,
crap.
none of them had the same answer.
Right.
Not one person
Right.
had the same answer, and so that told you right away that there was a branding problem, an internal messaging problem. And so if you don't know your own elevator pitch, how are you going to consistently relate that to your customers or your prospects? So a little bit of your internal budget should probably go to that internal communications. Then, you know, how are you communicating to your customers? We all know it's cheaper to keep an existing customer than it is to go out and find a new one. So how are you communicating to your customers? Because that's also going to impact your referrals and have a big impact on your overall budget and revenue goals. And then I look at it as the next tier down is your influencers. I look at media influencers. I look at analysts like Gartner, Research, Forrester, you name it. I look at the social media influencers, and I put them in there, and I try to determine who are those people because I want to have a communication strategy that goes after them. And then obviously my partner channel, my distributors, my network. We've got to have a strategy because those guys are selling our products. And then ultimately, the largest part of the triangle is the bottom. It's the end users. And oftentimes I find that people go straight for the end users. But the reality of it is you don't have enough budget. You have $250,000. And if you go after a universe of 1 million people, what is that? Less than 2 cents a contact? Good luck with that.
Right.
But by going through that triangle process, it has a trickle-down effect, and it actually is influencing end users. Now, I'm not saying don't go after the end users. Clearly, you have to do that. But allocating some of your marketing resources to the top of the triangle and to these other verticals, you'll find that you'll be more effective. Then I start looking at personas. Who are the 1 or 3 key players that I need to be focused on? Is it the financial guy, the end user, and the decision maker? And then I move to stage, and I literally map out this communication strategy, and I try to put myself in the mind of that buyer. And I think IBM, Michelle Grieshaber, does a fantastic job of developing personas and rolling out the stages and how they communicate to their prospects during each of those stages, buying stages. Learn. I think I might have a problem. They're going to search for you. So where's your content? How's it performing? Solve. How do I solve this problem? And then compare. Am I solving the problem the right way? And then purchase. And I find it's kind of funny that a lot of us marketers, we do a pretty good job on the first 3 stages, but when we get to purchase, I don't know if we really do a very good job of helping them make the actual purchase decision. Help me buy your product. Make a case for me to go to my team and make this purchase decision. Right. And so I think take a look at that. That's an important one. And then I go to the next stage. What's the message? Why? What's my call to action? What's the 2 or 3 keywords I want to include in this message? Which is right up your alley. The content queen of the world. You got to know that. And then format. Where am I going to put this message out? How many different formats? Right. How are we going to integrate it? Yeah, I love the integration too. I think we talk about integrated marketing, and we all know an integrated campaign will outperform a non-integrated campaign. But what does integrated marketing really mean? And I think at the end of the day, what it really means is how are we leveraging these channels to enhance our campaigns? Clearly you can't put a full persona campaign on Twitter, but how do we utilize Twitter to enhance those campaigns and communicate with us? Or offline media buy or whatever. And then ultimately, which you and me we've talked about for hours, is goals. What is the goal of this particular piece? Is it a branding campaign? Is it traffic? Is it wallet share? Is it lifetime value? Is it cross-sell, upsell? And if you simply just map through these stages, I think that you'll kind of find yourself, going down this strategic roadmap with pretty good success. The other thing I'll say too is if you take the time to go through the persona stage, I think it'll actually change your company and have a huge impact because you're also creating a sales enablement tool. You'll be able to hand to those salespeople, this is what Bob looks like. Here's what keeps him up at night. Here's how much buying power and authority he has. Yeah. here's where he hangs.
That drives your sales strategy. That drives your content strategy. It drives your strategy with regard to the copy on your website, your calls to action in social. I mean, it just is so important to be thinking about that.
I couldn't agree with you more. I run into that one just all the time because it is such a big. Let's face it. Anytime you put in strategy into a conversation, it goes a million different directions. So I was always struggling with it, and so I kind of work with this construct and this format, and it kind of helps me really formalize a plan.
Cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about lead scoring. And everybody wants leads, but if you're chasing your tail after leads that aren't even remotely something that's going to lead to a sale, it's just a big waste of time. So let's talk about the role lead scoring plays in lead gen.
Sure. Well, it's no secret that the adoption rate of marketing automation technologies, marketing automation platforms like Eloqua, Marketo, Neolane, you name it, Pardot. There's no shortage of them. They've popped up. In fact, there's a lot of statistics that are suggesting that all B2B companies, or 50% of B2B companies, will have lead scoring or a marketing automation platform in place by the end of 2015, and I think that's pretty accurate. So that's why Oracle went out and bought Eloqua for 90 million or 900 million. That's why Salesforce paid 2.5 billion for Pardot or
Right.
ExactTarget.
Right.
So lead scoring is really a big part of that. And of course, when I used to work at Eloqua, so there's no secret there. And we used to have this phrase called co-dynamic lead scoring. And the idea is that we're scoring someone based off their explicit information, their industry, their title, company size, BANT, and then we combine that with someone's implicit behavioral score. So what are they doing? Are they showing buying behaviors, or are they just tire kickers? How often are they visiting my website? Are they downloading any white papers? Did they sign up for my e-newsletter? Are they opening the e-newsletter and reading it and clicking on things? What keywords did they use to come and find me? All these things can be scored, and they really do one primary thing, and that is prioritize a salesperson's most precious commodity, which is their time. They only have so much time in a day. And so if I can make that guy spend his time in an efficient manner and get more meetings, he will close more deals. And so you have to look at things like industry. If it equals finance, maybe we give them 3 points. But if industry equals software or high tech, maybe we give them 10 points. Are they a manager or are they a VP? Obviously you're going to score a VP higher than you probably would a manager. But more importantly, I think behavior plays a bigger role in lead scoring because that really shows buying behavior more than anything. So I might score someone, give them so many points for visiting a web page or downloading a white paper or attending a webinar. Those types of behaviors are pretty important. And you can also score people based on did they stop by and visit me at a trade show. But you might have to manually enter that information with an Excel spreadsheet. But that offline activity is just as important because it is a behavior, and we want to make sure we track that stuff. Now, I will say this: I'm always me. I a bit crazy, and I always like to look at other ways to score people. One of the things I was looking at this last year is what I call tri-dynamic lead scoring. Got to be one better, right?
Wow.
The idea was to look at a person's social media behavior and see, are they an influencer? Do they have a big network? And start taking into account, what are they talking about, and scoring their social behavior as well. So I was kind of rolling out this idea of tri-dynamic lead scoring.
You know what, and I will tell you, Shawn, I think this is so important because what happens to me all the time is that I get phone calls. I actually just wrote a piece about this earlier this week, but I get phone calls from people that have spent zero time looking at who I am as a prospect and calling me to talk to me about content marketing software or about lead gen or about marketing automation software or whatever. And, and I say, because the last thing I want to do is say, hey, I'm a really big deal, you're an idiot, because I don't think of myself that way, but I know a lot about this space, and I write about it, and I talk about it, and I speak about it all over the United States. And it's like, dude, if you haven't taken 3 minutes to check me out because I'm so easy to find, I mean, I could be your biggest brand advocate, and I could be the person that's writing about what it is you're trying to sell or standing up on a stage and telling people they should be using it, but you're too lazy to engage in dynamic lead scoring. And so you're going to lose me. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to use you as an example of a sloppy salesperson when I do stand up and talk about it. So it frustrates me to no end.
That's a topic I could rant on forever about. I can't get over it. I do a lot of research online, and because I'm looking to fill speaking slots at my events, I'm looking to become a thought leader myself. Although that term is kind of drives me a little nuts itself, but yeah, I do a lot of research, and so you wouldn't believe how many phone calls I get. And I ask them, I go, have you taken a look at what I do? And they're like, no. And I'm like, yeah. And so what that really tells me is that the VP of sales has got these guys dialing for dollars, and
right.
And it's like, come on, be a little bit smarter. Why don't you look at lead scoring? Look what I'm doing. And if they saw that, hey, I might be showing a lot of buying behavior from an implicit perspective, but if they looked at my BANT, I'm a 3-person company,
right?
And I have a dog in the office, whatever it is, they would probably realize, wow, you know what, I probably shouldn't waste any time talking to John. So yeah, I couldn't believe with you more. I couldn't agree with you more.
Or I should talk to him, but I should talk to him with a different goal in mind. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you've got me, if I happen to answer your call, which is rare, you've got me. And anybody that's paying any attention at all to leads is that when you have somebody on the phone leads convert 10 times more than any other kind of lead. So you've got me. Why not use some finesse and say, oh my gosh, Shelly, I'm so glad I got you. I've been checking out your site. I've been seeing all that you've been doing in the social space. I know you're really a fan of this. I'm so happy I reached you. Do you have 5 minutes for me to tell you about this marketing automation platform or this blah, blah, blah? And it's like, you know what? You already got me. I'm going to listen. So I just don't understand. I truly had somebody just kind of hang up on me this week. And when I said, I'm really not somebody that's going to buy your product, but I'm somebody that, would write about it or whatever. And he's like, oh, yeah, sorry to bother you, and hung up. And it's like, really? Okay, awesome. You're
super rude.
So, okay, well, we could talk about that forever. So have we talked about the advantages of lead nurturing and marketing automation? I mean, I know that there's really a couple of important bullet points that we could leave people with, because there's just overwhelming data that supports the fact that you need to be doing this and you need to be doing it now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest advantage of marketing automation is the lead nurturing capabilities of it. Us marketers spend an awful lot of money trying to attract a buyer, and then if we don't continue this conversation with them, then we're kind of being silly. And the main reason is if you look at the statistics. I mean, Mac had done a little study here and he looked at all of his clients and he said, hey, let's take a look at when someone actually first became in contact with us to the point of when they actually made a purchase decision. And in his study, 0 to 7 months, the first 7 months, only 27% of the qualified leads actually converted.
Right.
So you look at the math. Now, I saw another study where it suggested that out of all the leads you generate, only 24% will actually be qualified in the first year, 22% year 2, and like up to 40% if they're still a qualified lead after 3 years. 40% of the sales actually come in year 3. So if you're not nurturing those people for an extended period of time, you're wasting all the budget to get them into the ecosystem, and you're not spending anything to nurture them. You're really killing your budget.
Right.
And you're making it that much harder for you to hit your numbers every quarter. It's just going to become increasingly more and more challenging for you because you just don't have enough budget. So nurturing is this whole idea of I know a little bit about this person. I'm watching. I know his title. I see what his behavior. Let's build out some interactive tracks that tell him a little bit more about our company. And you're really trying to move them from this idea of learn, solve, compare, and purchase. So how do I move them through there? And so first start off with, hey, this person downloaded a white paper on content marketing. Super. Then maybe I want to talk to them a couple weeks later about social media strategies. Maybe I want to talk to them about webinars. Maybe I want to talk to them about SEO. Maybe a month later I want to talk to them about what it takes to become a content marketing expert. That whatever the product or service is, just think of it as a linear path and roll this thing out. And then start off simple. If you know your sales cycle is on average 9 months, then maybe you roll out an A/B test split where track A, I'm going to talk to these people twice a month. Track B, maybe I talk to them 3 times a month. And then basically we can kind of monitor and see, are people progressing through our nurturing track, or are they falling off? Is program A is talking less to them, accelerating my funnel, or is it slowing my funnel down? And so really it's all about funnel acceleration and how are we moving them through the pipeline. And because, let's face it, 2 years later, the goal would be if this guy goes, hey, I'm ready to buy that IT security solution I saw a couple of years ago, and they can't remember who it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Waste of budget.
Absolutely.
So
Well,
at least now,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, I was going to say at least that your brand's still top of mind, and so if at a minimum they'll at least remember your brand, and they might not remember you personally, but and the salesperson may not even be there anymore. But the idea is that, hey, if they remember your brand and 2 years later they make a purchase decision, those are dollars that you spent 2 years ago and you've been nurturing for 2 years that you can attribute to those campaigns. So media attribution plays a role now.
Is there another graphic you wanted to show us about how long to nurture someone, or have we shown that already?
Yeah, we just did.
We just shown that. Okay, I wasn't sure if I'd seen that. I was hanging out on Twitter. I was, multitasking. So,
not you.
So, okay, this is something that you and I both could talk about forever. So, tell us, if you can, your thoughts on how important the alignment of sales and marketing is, and any steps you recommend to getting these aligned. And before you answer that, I will tell you that John Jantz's new book is out and really tackles that, and I'll show everybody a copy of that too. But every marketer has the same struggle, and I think that I feel like marketers realize how important it is for us to align with sales. I'm not sure how much sales feels that way, and I'm certainly not sure how much senior leadership feels about that. So can you tackle that real quickly, because we're winding down to the last few minutes of our show.
Sure. Well, I actually I think that it's probably one of the most critical components or pieces of becoming a successful marketer today. Let's face it, sales is really your customer, and if you don't have a good relationship with them, then how are you guys going to help each other reach your goals? Because they could throw you under the bus, and most likely, if the VP of sales throws you under the bus, you're probably going to lose that battle. They're going to say they're not giving me the leads I need. These guys don't understand it. They'll go out and create their own collateral because they don't think marketing understands what they need.
Absolutely.
Which is crazy.
It happens all the time now.
All the time. I see it all the time. So I think it starts off with really sitting down and having a conversation and saying, what is a qualified lead? And getting sales input on determining just what that looks like. What does he look like? What's his title? What's the kind of behavior that you'd like to see? Clearly they don't want to waste their time educating a prospect. They're really looking for that educated prospect. And I think salespeople really need to also have some visibility into that behavior, because today's buyer is more sophisticated, most likely more sophisticated than your own sales team. because
Right.
they're looking at all the other solutions and they're talking to a bunch of people. They're getting feedback from their social networks. They're doing their own research. So um, your salespeople have to be pretty sharp. And if they start to see some insight into that implicit behavior, they can start to find out, hey, what is a true qualified lead? And then I like to have service level agreements in place. So we've defined what a qualified lead looks like. How are we going to handle it? So how many hours do you have when I pass this lead over to you? Do you have to respond to them, to follow up with them? And we all know that time quotient is pretty important.
Right.
If I
Right.
wait a week to call a guy, chances of me even getting him on the phone
Or
are
slim. Right.
slim to none. So I think having those service level agreements and deciding, hey, here's what a defined lead is, and here's how we're going to handle it and manage it is going to help you with that integration between sales and marketing and just make you guys a team now. Now you can really say, hey, um, we understand John doesn't have any leads in his territory. We've got to do something to help John make his quota. And John's going to love you, and the VP of sales is going to love you, and all because you just sat down and had those simple conversations and simple little service level agreements.
Well, and I think too, another way you can tackle this is that you have to go into it knowing that you're not, there are always going to be people that doubt this or who aren't ready to embrace this integration yet because we've been not working together for too long. So I think that when you can find when you can find somebody that you can make a hero, when you can, even if it's just one person on your sales team, and this is true whether you have a huge sales team or a small sales team, when you can find just that one person and say, you know what, if you will dedicate some time and work with me, we'll do this, this, and this is what we think is going to happen. Let's give it a shot. The worst thing that's going to happen is, you're not going to sell. Nothing bad is going to happen as a result of that. But I think that when you can find your internal adopters and make them heroes, I think that sets a benchmark and gives you a case study that you can use to convince the other naysayers, and they're going to be those people.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it's funny. I hosted DemandCon in London, and I was kind of surprised that there seems to be a bigger disparity between sales and marketing in Europe than there does in the U.S. I think we're starting to understand the importance of it more so. And it kind of surprised me. I was really, really shocked to see how many sales executives in the UK were like, the heck with marketing. They don't know what I need. I'm just going to go do my own thing. But now hopefully that's changing. I'm sure it is. It seems like the U.S. tends to lead all the thought leadership when it comes to marketing. But if you're a global company, you need to actually probably pay attention to this on a global scale, not just the U.S.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Shawn, you've been awesome today, and I do want to tell everybody, actually I'll have you tell everybody about what's coming up in June in Minneapolis and how they can be a part of it.
Thanks. Well, as we mentioned earlier, I own the Integrated Marketing Summit, and it's a conference I built or launched in 2009, and it was the idea that it's not about email or social or search. It's truly about integrated communications, and so I wanted to put together a conference that talked about this integration aspect. And so June 5th, we actually are rolling out a couple of workshops. Shelly's going to be doing a content marketing workshop, what's working in 2014. And myself and Mac McIntosh, CEO of Acquire B2B, a great agency. Mac's been doing this forever. I shared some of his slides today. We work together with a lot of clients to help them with their sales and marketing initiatives. And so we're going to do a program on June 5th as well from 1 to 5 p.m. It's an optional workshop for those people who might be struggling or wanting some additional advice on how to reach their goals. And then the Integrated Marketing Summit is happening on June 6th. That's an all-day conference, and we've got speakers from Target, from Cargill, Deluxe, 3M, IBM, Hallmark, Don Schultz from NU's coming out. Love Don. Controversial. Love the guy. So we've got over 20 speakers that are covering all kinds of topics related to integrated marketing. So you get information at the integratedmarketingsummit.com and click on Minneapolis, and you'll get the download on all the speakers and the agenda.
That sounds great. Shawn, thanks so much for joining us today. You're awesome. Can you do me one favor, please, and just make it warm up here in Kansas City? We actually both happen to be in Kansas City, which is amazing because that doesn't usually happen. But anyway, it's ridiculously cold here today, and it shouldn't be. So anyway, Shawn, thanks for joining us. Thanks, everybody, for joining us as well, and we'll see you same time next week.